My name is Amanda. This isn't a story about love or passion. It's about one quiet decision I didn't stop, and the life I live because of it. I was 28 years old when this happened. I had been married for 5 years. My husband's name is Mark. We lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood, tree-lined streets, clean sidewalks, the kind of place where nothing ever really happens. Mark worked in corporate sales. His job required a lot of travel. Sometimes he was gone for days, sometimes for weeks. At first, it didn't bother me. I told myself this was normal. He was building our future, but when he traveled, the house felt different. Not empty, just distant. I would come home from work, make something simple for dinner, and sit on the couch scrolling through my phone until I was tired enough to sleep. We didn't fight. We didn't argue. We just slowly stopped talking about how we felt. In November, Mark left for a 3-week business trip to London. I drove him to the airport. We kissed goodbye like always. 2 days later, his brother David called me. He said he was in town for a job. On a Viriding asked if he could stay for a couple of nights. I hesitated before answering. Then I said yes. He was family. It felt harmless. David was different from Mark. Less serious. More talkative. The house felt louder when he arrived. Music playing. Conversation at the dinner table. Someone asking how my day was. I didn't realize how quiet my life had become until it wasn't. We cooked dinner together the first night. Nothing fancy. Pasta, a bottle of cheap wine. Nothing inappropriate happened. But something shifted. He stayed an extra night, then another. I didn't tell Mark right away. Not because I was hiding anything. It just didn't feel important. By the third night, it felt normal. Too normal. We watched a movie after dinner. When it ended, neither of us stood up. I noticed how close we were sitting. I thought about moving. I didn't. There wasn't a dramatic moment. No plan, no excuse. Just a quiet failure to leave the room. That's the truth. The next morning felt heavy. David packed his bag early. We didn't talk about what happened. He left. I told myself it was over. That night, Mark called from London. I answered like nothing had changed. I lied easily. That scared me more than the mistake itself. Weeks passed. Mark came home. Life continued. Then my body started to feel different. I was tired all the time. Food made me nauseous. I bought a pregnancy test and took it alone in the bathroom. When it came back positive, I sat on the floor and counted dates in my head. The math didn't work. I already knew what that meant before I said it out loud. There was no option that didn't hurt someone. If I told Mark, I would lose my marriage. If I stayed quiet, I would live inside a lie. I stopped sleeping. I lay next to him at night, listening to him breathe, wondering who I was becoming. I told him the truth after he came home early one day with good news. He said he was done traveling, and he wanted to start a family. There is no good time to tell someone something like that. I didn't explain much. I didn't justify myself. I just told him. He didn't yell at first. He went quiet. A week later, he asked me to leave. When I told David I was pregnant, he said he wasn't ready. Then he disappeared. My daughter was born the next summer. I live smaller now, a smaller apartment, a quieter life. I work long hours. Most days I'm tired. Mark rebuilt his life. I don't follow it closely anymore. I don't think about that night every day, but I think about the version of myself who didn't stand up from the couch. That's who changed my life. I love my daughter. I accept what I did. This isn't redemption. It's just reality. And this is where my life landed. After my daughter was born, time stopped feeling normal. Days didn't flow into each other anymore. They stacked on top of me. I moved back and forth between feeding schedules, doctor appointments, and shifts at work. I didn't have the energy to think far ahead. I just focused on getting through the day. My mother helped when she could, but she had her own life. Eventually, I had to stand on my own. I rented a small apartment. 1 bedroom. Thin walls. A view of the parking lot. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't the life I thought I would have. Some nights, after I put my daughter to sleep, I would sit on the floor next to her crib and watch her breathe. I felt love and guilt, both at the same time. People think guilt fades. It doesn't. It just becomes quieter. Mark and I didn't speak much after the divorce. There were documents, emails, short, necessary conversations. We didn't fight anymore. There was nothing left to fight about. Once, months later, I saw him at a grocery store. We stood in the same aisle pretending not to see each other. When our eyes finally met, we nodded. That was it. I went home and cried in the shower so my daughter wouldn't hear me. David never reached out again. Sometimes I wondered where he was. Sometimes I hoped I would never know. As my daughter grew, questions started coming. At first, simple ones. Why don't we have a big house? Why don't we visit Daddy? I answered carefully. Age-appropriate truths. Half answers. I told myself I'd explain everything one day, but that day always stayed in the future. I worked harder than I ever had before, not because I wanted success, because I needed stability. There was no backup plan anymore. No one else to catch me if I fell. Some nights, after work, I would sit in my car for a few minutes before going inside, just breathing, preparing myself to be strong again. Loneliness feels different when you're a parent. You don't get to fall apart. You compartmentalize. I didn't date. Not because I thought I didn't deserve happiness, but because I didn't trust myself. I didn't trust my judgment. I didn't trust my need for comfort. I learned that loneliness doesn't always look like sadness. Sometimes it looks like relief when someone pays attention to you. That scared me. There were moments I wanted to call Mark, not to fix anything, just to hear a familiar voice. I never did. Some doors don't reopen. They just remain closed. As the years passed, the story stopped feeling sharp. It became dull, heavy, but familiar. I stopped replaying the night itself. Instead, I replayed the small choices around it. The silence, the hesitation, the decision not to stand up. Those are the moments that matter. People like to imagine mistakes as explosions, but most of the time, they're slow leaks. My daughter doesn't know any of this yet. She just knows I'm there. She knows I pick her up when she falls. She knows I show up. Maybe that's what accountability looks like now. Not forgiveness. Not erasing the past, just living responsibly inside the truth. I don't believe everything happens for a reason. Some things just happen because we're human. I don't think I'm a bad person. I think I made a bad choice and then had to live with it. That distinction matters to me. I still walk through quiet neighborhoods sometimes. I still notice houses that look like the life I almost had. I don't stop. I don't linger. I keep walking. My life is smaller now, but it's honest. And every day, I choose not to look away from who I am. That's all I can do. As my daughter got older, life stopped feeling like survival and started feeling like routine. Not an easy routine, just a predictable one. Mornings began early. Packing lunches, finding shoes, rushing out the door. Evenings were quieter. Dinner, homework, bath time, stories before bed. Some nights, when the apartment was finally silent, I felt the weight of everything again. Other nights, I was too tired to feel anything at all. I learned that exhaustion can be a kind of mercy. There were moments when I wondered who I would have been if that night never happened. Not happier, just different. That version of me feels like a stranger now. I don't tell people my full story. Not because I'm ashamed, but because it's complicated. And most people don't actually want complicated. They want neat explanations, clean endings. Life doesn't give those. When my daughter asked more questions about her father, I answered slowly, carefully. I told her families can look different, that some people are present in other ways, that she is loved. It wasn't the whole truth, but it wasn't a lie either. I'm still deciding how honesty works when it affects more than just me. Sometimes I imagine the conversation I'll have with her one day. I imagine her face, her silence. I don't know how it will go. That uncertainty stays with me. I've thought about forgiveness a lot. Not from others, from myself. Some days, it feels possible. Other days, it feels earned but unfinished. I don't believe one apology fixes a life. I believe consistency does. Showing up, doing the work, not running when things feel heavy. That's how I measure myself now. I don't check Mark's life anymore. I stopped a long time ago, not because it doesn't hurt, but because it doesn't help. I hope he's happy. I really do. But his life is no longer part of my healing. There are days I feel lonely. Not desperate lonely, just quiet, lonely. The kind that sits with you while you fold laundry or wash dishes. I don't try to fill it quickly anymore. I've learned that reaching for comfort without understanding why can cost more than you expect. So I pause. I breathe. I let the feeling pass. My daughter laughs a lot now. She runs ahead of me in the park and turns back to make sure I'm watching. I always am. She doesn't know the story that led to her existence. She just knows she's here. And that feels enough for now. I don't think of my life as ruined. I think of it as narrowed. Some paths closed. Others force themselves open. I walk the ones I have. Carefully. Honestly, I don't rewrite the past anymore. I don't bargain with it. I let it stand. Because pretending it didn't happen only gives it more power. This is my life. It isn't dramatic. It isn't inspirational. It's real. And every day I live it with my eyes open. That's the only promise I still know how to keep.